All right, all. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Thanks so much for joining us on a Friday afternoon to learn a little bit more about our Make a Change grant and what we're doing this year for 2024. To do quick introductions, my name is Vic Sampson. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer and the Director of Programs and Services here at ADI. I'll let our moderator Reed introduce himself as well.
Hello, I am Reed Degger. I am doing administrative assistance, and I'll be the point of contact for any questions that come up as you guys are rolling through the process. Any details you need, any forms that you need, and any correspondence up to our project due date.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Basic overall agenda here real quick is we just want to talk about what the purpose of the grant was, eligibility, project requirements, timelines, and then some advice for writing a successful project proposal, and then answer any of your questions on this. So let's go ahead and get started here. So really with the purpose of this grant, I'm really excited about this. This is our second year of doing this, and we want to continue doing this for as long as we can. But we want to be able to provide about 10 organizations. You can think of schools, school districts of that, up to about $75,000 in funding to support the adoption and subsequent use of ADI instructional materials. And the reason we really like this is because there's so often when we're thinking about making a change in a district or adopting something new, it's often funding or some kind of event or something to get us started. So if you and your district have been wanting to try out these things, get things going, start using different kinds of instructional materials, this is a perfect way to do it. And we're super excited to be able to support 10 different organizations in doing this work. So let's talk about who qualifies for this. So eligibility, right? We keep this pretty open as we possibly can because we don't want to limit this. So basically your school or district needs to be in the United States. That's element one. And if your school or district is not using ADI at all, or maybe just a couple teachers are kind of playing with it, or you've been using it, say, in science and you want to move over to math, or maybe you've been doing it in science and you want to do it in engineering, you can do that. Or maybe you've been using it in middle school and now you want to go up to high school in science. Any of those kinds of things is the idea of you're expanding and making a bigger change to that. So you can kind of think of eligibility is we're in the United States. We want a big shift in what we're doing in terms of teaching and learning for a grade or by subject kind of thing. So requirements-wise, when you think about this, and this is in the RFP that we released, there's 10 big requirements of this. So I always think it's important to kind of go over when you're thinking about what kind of project that you want to put together. So the first requirement is you got to initiate a major change, and that's back to the eligibility, right? So you've got to think about what you're doing in terms of teaching and learning science, math, or engineering that's going on your place of school, and what are you going to do to change that, right? Is it an existing materials change? Is it a shift in teaching? Is it expanding into different grades? You need to make some kind of big change on that, right? So it's not just like, a couple teachers will try something out, right? So a big shift. Two, the project that you propose has to span over a year of a period of either 3 or 4 years. So 3 is the minimum, 4 is the maximum, okay? And part of that is because we're talking about change here, and we know change takes time in education. So a lot of these requirements are designed to, if you're going to go through this effort to make this kind of, and use this funding to get something started, that it's going to be in place and it's going to be long-term, right? Because there's so many things we end up doing in education where we'll try this 1 year and then we're on to something new. We want to make sure that this is sustained. Just so you can start thinking about how these years work. So if you think about kind of the project itself that you'll be supporting, if you decide to do a 4-year, you can kind of think of 4 performance periods, right? 1 per year. So we've got this set up, and why we have the due dates is so you can have the money and get started by July 1st of this year, right? Then you have all of this year to work on stuff. At June 1st of year 1, which is June 1st, 2025, your first year report will be due. And that's a little bit before year 1 ends. Part of that is because we up the money for the second year, given adequate progress and you're doing what you promised that you're going to do in terms of your project, so you can get your money released by July 1. So we need a few weeks to go over that and talk to you about stuff if it happens to be any issue. So year 2 starts July 1, ends July 30, 2026. Year 3, July 1st, 2026, and ends 27 of June 30th. So that's the shortest project you can do. If you want to go into year 4, then that would start again in July 1 of 2027 and end in 28. So the idea is long term while we're doing this. The way you can think of this in terms of time this is the way I like to think of it, is if you think the first 2 years of your projects you're really building capacity and expertise, right? So like getting materials to teachers, helping them learn how to use them, working out the any hiccups that are coming in implementation, things you forget to do, all that kind of stuff, being responsive to kind of a project is years 1 and 2. And then years 3, and if you go into 4, then you really need to start thinking about developing infrastructure for long term. Like, so if we're doing all these change, how do you keep them in place, right? Or do you want to move into like, okay, this is going to be a gateway to another adoption for another grade or another set of schools or whatever it ends up being. Also, you're starting to be thinking about dissemination, which is spreading the word about what you're talking about. And we'll get to more of that as project requirements goes on. But you can kind of think of year 1 as doing it, year 3 is keeping it up and planning for the long term and telling people about it. It's kind of the way you can think about how this project ends up working. Third big requirement is you need a team that consists of that's a diverse team of educators with lots of different experiences, right? So you don't want to have one person on a team or only 2. One of the things we believe in, if you're going to have meaningful change, you need to have a lot of buy-in. So you need folks that have project management experience. You need to have folks that have experience with leadership, teaching, assessment, professional learning, right? So try to bring as many people as you can into the project team to work together to pull this off. It also makes it a lot easier not having one person in charge of doing everything on the project. So we're looking for that. Number 4, you need to propose some kind of meaningful use of these materials, whether they're the hands-on stuff, the instructional materials, any of that kind of thing in a specific context or the entire project, right? So what we mean by that is if you're focusing on 6th grade at schools throughout your district, that is a meaningful focus. You keep going on that for the entire time, making sure that they have enough time to learn and adapt to this. Or maybe it's middle schools at three different locations of grades 6 through 8, right? Or all of the biology teachers, or whatever that ends up being, whatever you decide that's a meaningful chunk in what you want to focus on, what makes sense of that is they're getting a chance to meaningfully use this. So it's not just like one activity once a year in a couple classrooms, right? The idea is change, right? Can we get something like this happening in all of our classes or in as many schools as we possibly can, and then sustain that. 5th big requirement is you need to make sure that you have a way to ensure teachers have access to these materials after the project ends, right? So many times a project will start and then all good work has been done. We want to make sure that if you receive funding to do one of these projects, you've got to have a way to keep going in the future, right? So how do you build on this? How do you ensure that all the work that you did to help teachers learn or put it in instructional materials or get hands-on equipment out to folks so that keeps going after the project ends? Part of that is thinking about buy-in from administrations and school and district or school leadership on that to make sure that happens. 6th big requirement is that you need to make sure you provide professional learning for teachers, right? So we know that change is hard. So part of the thing is you just can't say, here's some stuff, go teach. Is there a way that we can promote and support student learning with these materials that you are focusing on while you're using? So there's got to be some kind of professional learning aspect to your project. It's your call of what you want to do and how much that is. The 7th big thing is your project needs to be focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether that's on the teacher level, student level, building level, course level, That is up to you. But the idea that is you should be broadening participation in some way, making sure there's fair access, and then people feel like their ideas and participation are valued in whoever you're working with, right? So a project that focuses only on AP Physics is not going to be a great way to meet this requirement, right? Or only for the honors kids or something like that, or only at one school. You want to make sure that your project is reaching a wide diversity in terms of a group of people, right? Whether that's teachers, students, or a combination of the two. Number 8, you need to make sure that you have a meaningful evaluation of the impact of the project on either teaching, learning, or both, right? So when you're looking at, we talk about evaluation, I'll get more into this about a successful proposal, you're looking at this issue of change, right? Did change actually happen in here? And an evaluation is asking the question, did that work, or did that happen, or did that do what we thought that was going to do? Okay, so it's more of a judgment kind of call. When you're saying this, like this did work or this didn't, not just documenting what kind of happened. I'll give you some advice on how that looks like here in a second, but you need to make sure you have an evaluation as a big part of your project. And then 9, you need to have a plan to disseminate your lessons, lessons learned, good or bad. How are you going to spread the word about what happened during your project, whether that is things that people should duplicate or things that they should avoid? If you've made massive success in for example, in students, getting more involved in after-school clubs because of this, and you've got more of a diverse group of students participating in that, share that, talk to folks about that. If your test scores have gone up in your district over the last few years because of this, share that, right? So these are the kinds of ideas that you're disseminating about the project. And then finally, and this is kind of important, one of the reasons we also ask for project managers is that there are project reporting and data collection needs that go into this to fulfill the requirements of the grant, right? Part of that is evaluation. Part of that is keeping track of budgeting, how money is spent. We will help with that, but you need to make sure you have a plan for who's going to take care of that, when is that going to happen, that is okay to collect the kind of data you are saying that you're going to collect. So these are the big 10 requirements on that, okay? So let's go timeline real quick. So February 2nd by 5 p.m., what we're asking you to do is submit intent to submit a proposal, right? So that means you haven't written it yet. You're just saying, I think I'm going to do this. This is not binding in any way, but it allows us to kind of plan on how many folks we're going to be needing to review and who do we need to get application materials to. To submit your proposal, which you could do right now if you want to, you just go to our Argument-Driven Inquiry website, go to Programs and Events, and then the Make a Change grant. And when you click on that, there's going to be a button in the middle that says fill out the intent to submit. All the intent to submit is that right there. So it's, 12 questions. And they're all pretty much 1 or 2 word answers. You submit that in. That has to be done by February 2nd at 5 p.m. At 5 p.m., then we do the count of who's doing this, and then we start preparing proposal packages to send out to everybody so you can have that stuff. So that's our cutoff date. You can do it now all the way up to February 2nd. What I would recommend, even if you're not sure you're going to submit something, I would do it anyway. That way you have an opening and you can decide. It's not, like I said, it's not binding. You don't have to submit if you submit that form, but you can't submit if you don't. Next thing we'll do is, as soon as we have those on February 2nd, like I said, we're going to we're going to send you a proposal package, right? And that package is what you fill out to officially apply for the grant. Those are due back to us by February 23rd at 5 p.m. When you are ready to submit your proposal, you can do it earlier than that or up to that time. Same web page, same spot. right next to the intent of the proposal, there's another button that says submit your proposal submission package. Just click on that and you can upload your files. Okay, so you might be wondering what a proposal package looks like, right? It's basically a bunch of files that we send you to make this as easy as possible to apply, and also to make it as fair as possible between school districts. One of the hardest things that I think when it comes to different organizations have more experience writing grants, and if you just get a blank piece of paper and say, hey, tell me your project, you're going to miss putting things in there. So we want to make sure the field is level and we have all the same information from every group, so we can fairly compare these different projects. Now, what you'll be getting is these files. You'll get a copy of the RFP that has already been available, a simple title page, a project summary, a budget, and some roles and responsibility. What those end up looking like is your project summary is basically 10 questions around, I think that's 10 questions, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 questions around those 10 requirements that I just told you about. So basically you are telling us what you're going to be doing in regards to those requirements, right? And this is just a Word doc. You can put your answers right in those boxes. It doesn't need to be 10 pages each, just however long you think you need to describe it. But we want to make sure we have the same information from everybody. You'll also get a budget in the form of an Excel file. When you get into that, it has directions on filling that out. Basically what it does is it talks about what money you're requesting from ADI and how you're going to be spending that, and then also how much money is going to be used or being kicked in by the district, because there is a cost match as part of the budget to this over time. So, and what that basically means is so much money is coming from the district to also, or the school to also support this work, right? So it's not one of these things that, once again, as we've seen over the years, you get a little bit of funding, the funding runs out, and then it's done. So the idea is that the starting part of the money or the starting part of the project is funded by ADI, and then slowly moves to you until you can be self-sustainable, right? So this budget will help you kind of figure that out. Like I said, there's lots of directions on how to fill that out. So, but this makes it very easy how to figure that, the money part of it. We also have a page for your project team. Remember, we're looking at not a one-person team, we're looking at multiple people. So we need to know who they are, what their current position, what's their expertise, what's their role in the project, and what their specific responsibilities are going to be. Don't have to write a narrative to that. All you have to do is list that in a table and then have the person that actually is in that table sign off and saying, yes, I agree that I'm going to do that. The other part is, that's the project team. There's also a organizational commitment. So there might be people that are in the organization that are very important and have decision or funding approval and that kind of stuff. These folks then we need some assurance that they know about this project and they agree to it, and make sure that they are supportive of what you're proposing to do. So we've got spots for that you can fill that out. You can usually do that with a superintendent or assistant superintendent, anyone that's kind of high ranking or be overseeing the grant on the district's or school side. Should be signing off and understanding that this is happening, and they agree with it, and they agree to, most importantly, they agree to support whatever you have proposed in your project to go here. So it's not going to really work if a single teacher says, I want this project, and they have no organizational support from that. So this is a big thing that we're looking for. Now, to help you with that, because this is a lot of information, we're going to have a couple proposal preparation office hours. Reed will be in there. He's the one that is overseeing all of these questions and all your contact person. So we'll open up a Teams meeting like this, and we will send an invite to the folks that we have sent a proposal package to. So if you get stuck, you can join us in that. You can ask any specific question down to, what do I put in this cell? Or I don't understand the difference between this and this. We'll answer that. Or is this okay to do it this way? We will answer all of those questions for that. You can also contact us by email. I'll give you Reed's email after this if you have a question as well. But try to take care of the office hours, because that just makes it easier that we can, instead of going back and forth over email, you can actually talk, share screens, things like that. It makes it a lot easier to see what's going on. So we got one on the 31st and then one on the 14th. They're about 2 weeks apart. So it gives you some time before the deadline on the 23rd to ask questions and check on things. Then the last one is March 15th. We send award notification letters. So at that time, we might say that this project is not a fit, so we're not going to fund it. We may say this has been selected as is, it looks great, or we might see a couple of issues in there that need to be changed, and we'll ask you if you're willing to change and make these revisions, then we'll fund, right? So conditional funding, you can kind of think of it that way. Like I said, this is not designed to, we want this process to be as easy as possible, and it's not a gotcha kind of thing. We want to fund groups to be able to do this good work, because we want to support all the amazing things you all are doing in schools. So often we will send back letters saying, hey, if you revise these and these pieces, then we will proceed with funding. If you're not willing to, we can't, or and that kind of stuff. So the March 15th is award notification, but it's not necessarily project starting. We have a few months after that to get things kicked in, and that also gives us some time to negotiate if we need to. So back to big questions, and then I'll open it up to answering yours. Is what makes a successful proposal? I think that's the hardest one. Is anytime we're writing a grant, is what are the grantors looking for? And the best advice I can give you is go back to those 10 big things, right? The 10 boxes or the 10 requirements of a grant, right? So one of the best things that you can do is that if you're going to be talking about initiating a major change in the teaching and learning in school, we're really serious about that change, right? It's not a small thing. It's something that's disrupting it. So at the very least in your proposal, tell us about the status quo. What hasn't been working? What are you not happy with? Is there baseline data that you want to change, right? So is performance in a certain grade level, or do you have climate surveys, or do you have any number of different things that you can use that you're focused on that goes with your school initiatives? What do you want to change or improve or see a difference in, right? So we need to kind of know what that baseline is at this point, right? So if you want to work in sixth grade, for example, why sixth grade? What is that in there? What are you hoping to change about what's going on in there? A great example of that is maybe in elementary school that not a lot of science is being taught. Maybe it's under, I don't know, a half hour a week or something like that. Well, if you have that data, we're right now teaching science only 30 minutes a week in these 5 schools. Well, a big change then could be we were trying to up the amount of minutes, and we're going to do that through this grant. Well, that's a big change that have happened and a great outcome to measure and the thing that you want to change. Once again, you need to have a team that consists of educators with diverse expertise, right? Not every one person can do everything on a grant, right? Make sure there's a project manager that can handle all of that data collection that needs to be done and filling out reports. Make sure that you have administrators, like a principal or a curriculum coordinator involved. Teachers should be involved. If they're doing this, at least one teacher should be part of the team, right? So it's not kind of a top-down kind of thing. Who does professional learning? That's probably somebody different than these other roles. So the more people that you can bring into these and say that they're committed to the project, that's the more buy-in that you can show us that your organization has, which increases the likelihood that your project will be successful. And that's one of the things that we're looking for. You also want to have a meaningful use of ADI instructional materials by teachers, right? So I would highly recommend that when you're looking at your budget, allocate the funding to get like something like Learning Hub subscriptions or kits, or depending on who's involved and how many, make sure that you're using funds to make sure that kids or teachers have the resources they need to be able to do these kinds of things, right? So think about that when you're doing your budget. You also want to make sure that they have access to anything that you're working with afterwards. So where is the funding going to come from for materials later on? What about kits when they're used up? What if something breaks? How are you going to keep these things kind of going? Are you going to continue professional learning for teachers after this? If so, where does the space come? Where does the time come for that? Who runs that, right? So part of the reason we asking for commitments from other people in the organization is because if they're making decisions about funding to keep this going, they should know about it and say they're supportive of these efforts. Like I said, you need to have professional learning for teachers, so tell us about it, right? Don't just say we'll teach teachers about how to teach this way. What type of PL? Is it going to be coaching? Is it going to be a workshop? Is it going to be during the summer? Is it going to be online? How often? Who's leading it? And really get into how many teachers are going to be supportive. Is this a project for 3 teachers, or is it for 25 or 30, right? When you're thinking about change, those are the things we want to know about. And as I mentioned before, we really want to see throughout the project a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? So at the very least, we recommend that telling us a little bit of how you're going to ensure that students or teachers that will benefit from this project will be a diverse group, right? So it's not just one category of person. You have a diversity of people within the groups that you're serving and benefiting from this project. How are you going to ensure there's fair access to the project activities, whether it's for students or for teachers, right? Who gets to participate? Who gets to access? Who gets the extra equipment? Who gets the extra training, right? And is that fair on how that's happening? How are you going to make sure that students and teachers feel like they belong on this project? So it's something they're doing together, not something that's being done to them. We really recommend you connect this to your initiate a major change requirement, right? So these should overlap quite a bit when you're talking about these two in your proposal. And a couple more things, and then we'll answer some questions here. I've got 2 more little pieces of advice. It's the evaluation, right? So evaluation tends to be what people struggle on the most. So especially last year when we were looking at proposals, there's a lot of things of like, we'll do teacher walkthroughs, or we'll talk to teachers about how things are going. And that's not really an evaluation, that's just supporting teachers, right? So when you think about an evaluation, what we're looking for is that you're documenting a change. So to document a change, you gotta know what's happening before and after you do something, right? And it can be anything that you want to focus on as long as you're focusing on change, right? So you can focus on teaching. How many hours teachers are spending doing hands-on stuff? How many hours they're spending on science? Are there more kind of student-centered kinds of activities going on and less lecture? Any number of different things. You can look at teachers' views about teaching and learning and ask them a questionnaire about how happy they are about teaching, or how much they think kids benefit from hands-on activities, or how something happened in their classrooms changed. But you need to document that before and after to be able to see that something has happened, right? So at one point in time, this is not going to work for your evaluation. Student access is another example, right? How many kids are taking AP? How many kids are in honors classes? Which kids are in those? If you're focusing on, say, engineering and an after-school thing, who's getting to go? How many people were there before you started this to after, right? Student performance, test scores, district scores, before and after this kind of things started. Student attitudes, if you're doing climate surveys, how have those changed? Any outcome you really want, as long as it's been focused on teachers, students, teaching, or learning, you're good as long as you have a change. But the best advice I can give you is you got to measure something, and you got to be clear about your specific tool that you're using to measure it, right? So you should be able to say, at this point we were doing this, I measured it then, we did ADI, or we did this project, then we moved in and I measured it again with the same tool, look at the change, right? So that's the best advice I can give you for evaluation. And then my last piece of advice is for dissemination, right? That just means telling people, spreading the word about what you did, right? So the first easy one, and we'll help you do this when you get awarded the grant, is to tell people that you got a grant. That's great. That's exciting. That means you're doing stuff. But tell us how, right? Are you going to go to conferences? Are you going to go to school board meetings? Are you going to go present at a district meeting? Where is it going to be, right? Is it in-state, out-of-state, in the district? And when? Try to avoid just saying, oh, we're going to share what we did, right? don't be vague with this. Even if you change your mind, at least show us you have a plan for, okay, we're going to go to these 2 conferences, we're going to be presenting at this school board meeting, and their days and times are this, right? So at least you have that, we know that you're thinking about where to go. And would really recommend then trying to strike a balance between inside and outside your organization, because people inside your organization need to know about the good stuff you're doing, but also outside. So try to balance between those 2. Those are really the things that give you a strong proposal on that. So I've been babbling a lot here for the last half hour. Let's open it up to questions. Like I said before, you can type them into the chat. I know Reed's been watching that, and I know we've got a couple. You can also unmute yourself or undo your camera if you want to just talk about it. We can do that, but more questions, the better.
All right. Vic, do we want to start with the 2 that are in the Q&A pane?
Let's do it.
I can read them out for you if you like. Rhonda Nevitt asks, does ADI provide any PD for teachers?
Oh, absolutely. So part of one of the things you can do when you get that budget is we try to put different things or ideas of what you could spend money on. It's not required, but there's kind of 2 techniques that folks do. Is you can use some of the budget funds to have ADI come out, and we can do workshops for you or do coaching. So we provide those services. You can also send 1 or more teachers to our facilitator institutes and have them trained, and then come back and do work with your teachers that way. Or if you have experts in your district already who've either been facilitator or been doing ADI a long time, they can run those kind of things. So you have a lot of options, but the short answer to that question is yes, we do provide those. If you want to look at the kinds of services that we have for that, you can either contact Reed because he helps oversees that, or you can go to our website where it says professional learning and click on that, and you can get some more information about the kinds of options that are available as well.
All right. And then second, we have Mary Bonaparte, who writes, does this grant support or only support implementation occurring during the school day, or can it be for after school programming led by teachers?
Absolutely, right? So we want this project to be what you feel is best in the district. So as I said before, it's requirements that change, right? So if you want to do it during the school day, great. If you want to do it after, if you want to do summer programming for students to give them more chances to get involved with engineering, or to change what things that you offer for kids during the summer months, these are all acceptable things. So we try not to limit the ideas that you've got. Just we're looking for make a case that it's a change, right? And it's going to do some good.
Very good. Next, we have ML Keener, who asks, can a district submit more than 1 project or proposal?
Yes, but likely only 1 will be funded. Unless they're remarkably different, right? So like if a district wants to do some big changes on things, what I would recommend doing on that is submit the proposal plan. And then if you're thinking about how big a scope the projects are going to be of being multiple proposals, talk to us about it, and we'll let you know if those are big enough or they should be combined into just 1. But if it's a big enough change, yeah, I see no reason why you can't submit more than 1 proposal.
We have an adoption question in chat. TEA has a list of materials up for adoption. Is there a reason why ADI only has 3 to 5 available for elementary?
That's a great question. So when you go through the adoption the adoption process, there's a lot of steps into it. And since we're a smaller group, we were able to get 3 through 5 done in a way that allows them to go through the entire review. We still have materials that are TEKS aligned, 100% TEKS aligned, ELPS aligned for K2 and 6 through 12. It was all the extra stuff that we just did not have enough people power to put all of that together to get it reviewed in the timeline that they needed it to be done. So we focus on 3 through 5, hoping, as all changes are, that's going to be the biggest need. So we want to make sure that was there.
All right.
But let me add this on this. What is the nice thing is if there's some kind of limitations on what materials that you can purchase through TA adoptions because they have to be on the list or not, you can supplement that with the funding from this as a way to do it. Sorry.
Okay. Looks like maybe we have Rhonda Nevitt raising her hand. Let me see here.
Thank you. This is Rhonda. I have another question, but it was going to be way too wordy to put in writing. So this is kind of funding question with like our district being able to allocate funds to supplement once the grant money runs out, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to purchase quite a few investigations this year, but we're not going to be able to implement them with fidelity because we had the money to purchase.
So you're holding on to them, kind of thing?
Yes, and we saw the value in them, kind of like we got them before we had the plan, if you will.
Yep.
So would we be able to include what we've already spent as money the district is like matching?
Yep, I'm good with that. Absolutely, right? So, you just got to be able to document what was spent.
Okay, perfect. That was a little too much to try to ask in.
Oh, no, there's all these, when it comes to projects like this, it's like, ooh, what about this unique situation?
Okay.
No, I completely understand that, and that already demonstrates a buy-in.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I think that's for everybody, as long as they haven't been used. Like, it can't be something like, I've been using these for a bunch of years, and now, like that. It's to initiate a change. And I think that's for you, Rhonda, that's the big one, is you haven't been able to use them yet, so they're kind of sitting and waiting to make things happen.
Yep. That's where we are.
Perfect. That seems like a great place. This seems like a great thing for you all.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And barring any late entries, I believe that is it. Those are our questions for now.
Fantastic. Those are great. If you have other questions, this is a great email address to write down. So Reed's going to be your contact person for the Make a Change grant person through all of this. We're also going to post this webinar, the video of this, so you can share it with other people and talk through this. So next Friday, we'll run this again. We'll do it live. It won't be any new information, but if you want somebody else to attend or have heard about this and they need to hear it firsthand and they don't really want to watch the video, we'll be here for that. But we'll send out some more notices on that. If you have any specific questions, contact Reed. And like I said, the best thing you could probably do if you're interested in doing this, go ahead and put a intent to submit. That way you can get the proposal package. If you start through that and you're like, I just can't do this right now, no big deal. You just don't submit. But if you don't have that intent to bid in there, we won't accept your proposal you won't have a proposal to fill out. So we need to make sure that that's there.
Okay, we've got one last question here. If our school pilots a STEM program after school, what requirements to join, such as grades, etc., does that qualify?
Perfect. And to answer that question, I think what you'd have to do is look at what's going in the after school program right now, right? So what's being done, how's time being spent, who's involved, and then thinking about, okay, what do I really want the outcomes, and how would ADI instructional materials help with that, right? So maybe, I don't know, just off the top of my head, maybe there's not much engineering going on in there. So you can use that as a way to say, okay, I'm going to provide engineering design challenges using these materials so kids can get involved in engineering, and then you can track, the change becomes offering that, and then you can track who's attending that, their views, or maybe the outcomes from that. If they've learned more about engineering, the sky's the limit. So that would definitely qualify as a context. The question just becomes of what is the change that's going to be. I hope that makes sense. Perfect.
Perfect.
All right. Then shall we call it a night?
I think let's do.
Fantastic. Thank you all for joining us on a Friday. Go enjoy your weekend.
Yeah. Have fun with the last of your break.